In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the Stipula Etruria Rainbow Limited Edition fountain pen with 14 karat gold Stiflex Nib. I'll go over the specs, I will do a writing sample, and I'll tell you what I like and don't like about this pen coming up. Blake here with Blake's Broadcast. On this channel, I review fountain pens, paper, and ink, and as always, I put links in the show notes in the description below. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps out my channel. All right, let's get on with the review. This is the Stipula Etruria Rainbow fountain pen, and this may look very similar to the other Stipula Etruria I reviewed in that beautiful wild honey acrylic. This pen is not as pretty as that. However, it is significantly more expensive. It is the same basic body, the same shape, same oversized dimensions, same clip, same cap ring, except these are in a matte silver finish. But the differences are we have the demonstrator body here, which is done in an Italian acrylic that is, turned from a solid rod. And we have a piston filler, and then we also have what's called the Stiflex Nib, which is a 14 karat gold nib. So those are the differences. Now the price for this pen, if you want one with the steel nib, $350 is the retail. If you want a gold nib, it's $795. So they are charging a $445 premium to get the gold nib. That is really, really, really high for the gold nib. Too expensive, in fact, in my opinion. I did get this as another Amazon special for $330. At that price, I actually think this is a pretty good deal because you get the big, comfortable body, you get the piston filler, you get that really nice nib, which I'll show you in a little bit. So let's just walk through the pen. Again, it's kind of a traditional torpedo shape. It's quite a fat pen with very minimal taper towards the ends here. There is no finial, but it kind of has this cone shape on the inside, and then it's clear up at the top. It's kind of neat. Now, in terms of like the clip, again, the same clip. We have this. This is I figured this out. I've learned more about Stipula since my last video, so a few things I have to correct here. All right, this is wheat. And that makes sense because straw is made out of wheat. So this is wheat, which, again, stipulation, that means straw. So that's wheat. All right. And then we also have that same thing carried on in the cap ring, which I think does look really nice. They use a lost wax casting like the Gioia Bella Vista I reviewed. I really like that. It seems to be something that I only see Italian manufacturers do. I know Montegrappa does it. Usually on a very, very expensive pen, but it looks nice. It's deep. There are some, imperfections to it, but it's deep and crisp. I think it looks pretty good. Now, on the Wild Honey one, we did have like the high gloss rings on the outside and then the matte on the inside, which I think looked really good. We don't have that here. This is all just matte, so that I don't like as well. In terms of the fit and finish of this pen, you will see, there's some grease in here, which is something that you need. In terms of like the clarity of the demonstrator body, I think this actually has a very similar look to the Conklin All-American demonstrator that I reviewed. I'll put a link to that up in the corner, which is to say it's not the cleanest looking demonstrator. Now, I think that's just the matter of the material and the way that it's made because it's turned from a solid piece. You don't have that optical clarity that you get on like a TWSBI or like the Asvine P36 that I reviewed or I'm going to review. So it's not quite as clean, but with the demonstrator, the more you use it, the less clean it's going to be, the harder it's going to be to keep clean. So at the end of the day, I don't think that's a huge deal, but I'm just pointing that out here. Now here we have the piston knob. And this, I would say, I have another Etruria faceted one. It turns the opposite direction of every other piston filler. So, and I'm blanking on this now. See, this is the main problem with this pen. Why would they make it turn the opposite of every other freaking pen? This actually kind of pisses me off because if you have other pens, this is encouraging you to make a mistake, which could lead into you breaking the pen. So I really don't like that. But anyway, you turn it clockwise to bring the plunger down, and then it's counterclockwise to bring the plunger up. This is the opposite of every other single piston filler pen from other brands. So this is really annoying. This is like the number one negative I have for this pen. Like, they just shouldn't do that because you're going to create a situation where you're going to make a mistake. I really don't like that. Now, one thing about this piston filling system, when you turn it, it doesn't actually, the knob doesn't actually move up off the body like most other piston filling systems. So there's a little bit more complexity to the way that this one works. That is nice, but that reverse screw knob is almost unforgivable in my opinion. Now on the barrel here we can say Stipula, made in Italy, and then we have a number here. This is number 120 out of 51. And as I said, this is part of the Rainbow series. I don't recall exactly how many numbers or different colors there are. I'm assuming there's 7 or 8 because that's the normal number that's in a rainbow, but this is the clear one, which I liked the best. When you have something that's very plain, it just works with everything. So I really like this clear color here. So it's a threaded cap here. And we can see, just like on the other Etruria, we have a big taper towards the nib here. Big taper in the grip section just because this is a big oversized pen. But it's very comfortable. It's a number 6 size nib. Now, the nibs I need to speak on a bit more. Again, I've done more research. So the nibs with Stipula are very interesting. They, in 2014, so like this company, Stipula, went out of business. Somebody bought it. In 2014, Stipula bought the vintage nib making equipment from a nib maker in Bologna called Globus. Now they went out of business in the 1960s and they made nibs, I think, from like the 20s to the 60s. And they were a very high quality nib manufacturer from Bologna. Globus is a name that I'm familiar with just from collecting Italian fountain pens. Some people have suggested that 1930s 40s Omas nibs were made by Globus. Omas, I believe, denied that. But anyway, they make a lot of nibs for a lot of different Italian brands. So very cool. Basically, the owner, I believe in 2014 of Stipula, or the new owner of Stipula, bought all this equipment because the owner of that Globus equipment passed away. So they brought all that from Bologna to Florence, and they started making nibs. They make their own steel nibs, including one called a V-Flex, which has a slit that goes very far up the nib. They make a titanium flex nib, and they make this Stiflex nib in 14 karat gold, as well as standard steel gold nibs, 18 karat gold as well. Now the Stiflex nib is a flexible gold nib. So this does have a plastic feed, and I have seen Stipula nibs, modern Stipula nibs, that have ebonite feeds. I don't know which models you can still buy ebonite feeds for with this. So I think for most Stipula pens now, it's all plastic. But these nibs are not Bach nibs, so that was wrong in my previous video. Now, I believe they are threaded. However, it's my understanding that they are machine tightened, so it's quite difficult to get these out. So I wouldn't try doing that unless you absolutely have to, but it is my understanding that they're threaded. And if we look at the section here, we do see some threading here, indicating that the unit is threaded. So I have read that if you do want to take out the nib, it might be better to just pull it straight out of the nib unit housing, because that part is friction fit. One thing I don't like is that in the nib housing, this isn't actually in the grip section, so you can't feel it, but you do see seams, 2 seams in the nib housing, which I don't really like. But again, because it's not actually this clear plastic piece that has the seams, you don't feel that. In terms of the body, we do have a big ink capacity here, and you can see the ink does make contact with the barrel of the pen, so that's quite nice. The nib, in terms of the design, we have that wheat motif, and it says Stipula, and then it says 14 karat gold 585, and then on the side we can see F. Now, there's nothing on this nib that would indicate that this is the Stiflex version of a fine. Now, let's do some measurements. Starting with the length here, about 149, 150, capped and uncapped. Looking at roughly 132. Posted, this does post, although it's a little top heavy for me. About 176, 177. So again, very big pen. We'll start with the barrel here. Barrel's about 15.7, and then the very tapered grip section, we'll go for the skinniest point, 10.7. So even though that's the 10.6, so even though that's the skinniest, that's still quite fat. So this is a very comfortable pen. In terms of the weight, 26.84 grams. So again, you really know it. You can feel that it's made out of a solid piece of acrylic just because it does have that heft. And then you do have all this metal in the back. So it definitely does become a little bit more top heavy on the back, but unposted, I find this really very, very comfortable. Posted, it does become, I think, a little top heavy for long writing sessions. In terms of the weight, 40.5 grams. So there's that. Now let's do a quick comparison with a couple other pens here. So here it is with the Mont Blanc 149. It's a little taller than it. It's definitely, this is definitely a heavier pen and with a smaller nib. And then there's the M1000 from Pelikan, which is, yeah, this is still a bit taller. And then we can see it with a Aurora Optima, which is more of a normal size pen. For the writing sample, I'm going to be using a Papermind Mitsubishi bank paper notebook. These notebooks are excellent with fountain pens, and for Blake's broadcast viewers and subscribers, you can get 10% off with code BB10 at checkout. Stipula Etruria Rainbow. This is a fine Stiflex Nib, and this is Hiroshi Zuku Konpeki. No, that's not right. It's not Konpeki. It is Tsukiyo. Okay. So and we'll do some fast writing. No real performance issues. When I first got this nib, it definitely seemed a little bit dry, but as I've used it, it seems a lot better. But I will say, with no pressure, it is definitely on the lighter side. Now again, this is a Stiflex Nib, so I'll try to just write with it, flexing it a bit. I know this handwriting isn't amazing, but it does require pressure. In normal writing, I don't think you're going to see really any flex with this. That's just kind of the way this nib is, unfortunately. But if we do push on it, and it does keep up pretty nicely. Like, look at this performance. Oops, there we go. We finally got it to railroad. Part of it is helped by this ink, which is a wet, lubricating ink, but overall the performance flex-wise is really quite good, I think. Go fine, and then we can push on it. Now, reverse writing, it's actually quite smooth. So it's a well-finished nib, but we're definitely skipping, so I would say no to reverse writing, even though it is surprisingly smooth. Also, I will say this nib, just in general for a modern flex nib, is quite smooth. It's not a scratchy flex nib like a lot of other modern flex nibs. Now, I won't say, oh, this is the smoothest fine nib I've ever used, but it's not a scratchy one. So I Really impressed with the performance of this nib. It's really quite good. What are my pros and cons for the Stipula Etruria Rainbow fountain pen with Stiflex 14 karat gold nib? I think the nib is actually a very nice writer. It is very soft and springy. It's a modern flex nib without being scratchy, which I really like. And the feed seems to be able to keep up with this nib really quite nicely. So in terms of general writing performance, I think it's very good. The big oversized body is quite comfortable for me. Now, if you have smaller hands, you might not like this size, but medium and larger hands, this is quite a nice pen. I do like that that nib is made in-house. That really, I think, adds to the value of the pen. And, you know, as somebody that likes fountain pens, that's a fountain pen enthusiast, I think it's very good to encourage fountain pen companies to make their own nibs, and that's what we have here. So I really feel that Stipula is a company worth supporting. Now, I also like the demonstrator body. It works really well. The ink, sits right against the body there, so it'll hold a lot of ink. That's very nice. I like that they're individually numbered. This is number 120. And I like the overall variety of nibs that you can get this. There you have 3 different types of flex nibs you can have with this pen. You can have the Stiflex, which I believe comes in medium and fine. There's the V Flex, which is steel, and the T Flex, which is titanium. That's quite a nice offering. I really like that. And then you also have, of course, your stub nibs. I believe the steel comes in a 0.9 and a 1.1, as well as a gold 0.9 and 1.1. So that's really, really nice. I also like the Lost Wax casting that they do for the clip and the cap ring. I think that has a very nice, crisp look to it. Now, in terms of cons, my biggest con, as I've already stated, is the way that the piston filling system works. It's the opposite of every other piston knob. Really don't like that. I just feel like I'm going to make a mistake at some point and I'm gonna be sorry. Other cons, fit and finish, I think is actually quite good on this pen, but it's not as optically clear as like a TWSBI or an Asvine pen. And I think that's just the nature of the solid acrylic that they use that they turn this from. So that's that. The price, I can't not mention the price. $795 in gold versus $350 in steel. That's a lot. That is just a lot of money. In steel, $350. That is, I just don't understand why that would cost this much. And then in gold, for that to be $445 more, it just seems like a lot. Now, if we compare this to an Aurora Optima, which is similarly priced pen, it doesn't seem that crazy. Or you compare it to a Montblanc 149, which is even more expensive. But somehow it just feels like a lot. I think I need to like readjust my thoughts on how much an Italian-made fountain pen should be. But I was able to get this for $330 on Amazon, and at that price, I'm very happy with this pen. It's quite a nice pen. You get that in-house nib, you get the big demonstrator body here. It's quite a nice package. But that's pretty much it. Do you guys have this pen? Do you like this pen? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, please hit that like button. And if you want to see more fountain pen, paper, and ink videos, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much, and until next time.